In Arizona, all too often that thing is a power pole, which can be a risky place to perch.
Each one of those conductors, when they're hot, will have 7.2 thousand volts running through it, so that's a pretty sizable amount.
The unfortunate truth is, birds can get hurt or even killed on power lines.
Now most birds can sit on poles or wires and they don't get harmed at all, but it's when their wings would touch two wires they can be injured.
And many do get hurt. We have no exact figure of how many get electrocuted, but we do know thousands of raptors alone, like hawks and owls, are killed each year.
The problem with birds and power lines has been around since the first power line went up in the late 1800s. In fact, there are papers published from that time on and in the 1920s. So we've known about it for quite a while. What's happened, though, is the number of poles over time has just increased over and over and over and kept increasing. And we're to the point now that there are so many lines around that it can be a significant problem to certain populations of raptors that it can be probably the most significant issue that they face in certain environments.
Wildlife rehabilitators know how big a problem this is. For example, Sandy Kate, the coordinator for the Arizona Game and Fish Department's Wildlife Center at Adobe Mountain, travels to classrooms and big events to teach people about electrocuted birds and other birds like this great horned owl that have suffered an electrical shock.
This bird we call Sparky, and that's because of his initial injury, and that is why he came in, because he was actually electrocuted on a power pole and part of his wing actually blew off at the time that he received that injury. And we've had this bird since 1999, so we've had him going on approximately 5 years now. And he is our ambassador when we talk about electrocutions and power poles and how the public can get involved to help us to help the animals by notifying power companies when they perceive that there might be a problem pole where a bird might be injured.
And the electrocution problem is receiving some attention. Since the 1970s, we've started working on how to protect birds. Some local utility companies even have a special program to address the problem.
The goal of our wildlife protection program is to reduce the risk of injury to wildlife and prevent them and make our poles as safe as possible. We recognize that our poles, as I said earlier, are the tallest things out here. They are going to migrate to our poles. They are going to use our poles. And we just need to make sure that we can keep them as safe as possible.
APS, Arizona's largest electric utility company, is already doing a lot to make a difference.
As part of our new construction, we do make sure our power lines are wildlife friendly. We use covered wire. We cover the insulators, transformers, and anything that would be a potential contact for wildlife.
APS has also been retrofitting existing poles in order to make them safer for birds. Crews are especially concerned when a nest is located on a power pole. You can help with this problem.
If anybody does see a situation where large birds like hawks or anything of that size, hawks, eagles, owls, any of the larger birds are using poles, either nesting on poles or congregating on them or just habitually using those poles, and they think it's a potential problem, they should call the utility company that operates those poles and report the problem.
Your call to the company can start a chain reaction that includes wildlife rehabilitation experts, people interested in helping to protect these beautiful birds.
Okay, when a nest is reported, APS goes out, we go with them as Liberty Wildlife because we provide kind of the biological input into this formula. And we go out and look at the nest and we figure out, determine what species are there, and what measures can be taken to protect those species, and also whether or not anything needs to be done at all. Some of them are not in danger, and so we leave those alone.
On this particular day, 2 biologists and other staff from Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation in Scottsdale are on hand to provide guidance as APS crews go through a complex process to move a hawk's nest out of harm's way.
This particular nest, we have red-tailed hawks that are using one of our transformers as a nest, and we just want to minimize the risk of them making power line contact and also for service reliability to our customers.
The APS crews cut the electricity to the section of wires they have to work on. Then they will move the nest to a safer, lower location on the power pole, where the birds are much less likely to come into contact with any dangerous equipment.
It can be pretty tricky getting them out, you know. You have to really become creative, and I'm amazed at sometimes where I've seen these birds, hawks, ravens, whatever.
2 adult red-tailed hawks fly overhead, watching and calling as they wonder what is happening to their home. Meantime, the APS crews get a look at something special inside the nest they're about to move.
It's 3 little babies. They're approximately 2, 5, and 7 days old.
APS staffers maneuver into position to prepare to move the nest. The tricky procedure requires them to slide a board underneath it before they can lower it to the ground. Meantime, the baby hawks are placed into a small pet carrier and taken to the ground for care. Workers from Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation tend to the chicks once they reach the bottom.
They look great.
The wildlife workers give the baby hawks a full examination.
He's still got his egg teeth.
They weigh the babies and write down their vital statistics.
That's the big one?
Yeah.
They also make sure the baby hawks have enough nutrition.
If they need fluids, we give them fluids. There's one of the younger ones that we actually gave subcutaneous fluids to. And there was a rat that was in the nest supplied by the mom. Since they're going to be down for a while, we cut the pieces apart and actually fed them. Now they're just kind of on heat in a dark, quiet place.
The baby hawks are kept in a cooler that's heated with a heating pad to the right temperature for their bodies, while they wait to be reunited with mom and dad in their newly moved nest. At the same time, the APS workers carefully work to place the nest onto a supportive platform that's specially designed just for this purpose.
It's fully non-conductive material. It's made out of fiberglass and plastic, and it has a lot of ventilation. It's a grating system all around the nest, so there's a lot of airflow, and it's also very versatile. It can be used in a lot of different situations, so we're really pleased with the design.
APS crews also insulate and reconfigure equipment to provide clearance for the hawks when they come back. Wildlife workers notice how important the lineman's work is.
It never ceases to amaze me. First of all, I have so much respect for the job that they are doing. This particular nest move, they took an outage, which means the equipment is not live at this time, but that's not usually the case. Usually these linemen are up there and they are doing all this work to help these animals, and it's a dangerous situation. I mean, there's a lot of electricity running through those lines, and I have just the most tremendous respect for the job that they're doing.
The nest and its new platform are raised off the ground and carefully put into place. When all is determined to be secure, the baby hawks are brought back up and placed back into the nest.
Oh, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. We just have one more part to go, making sure the parents come back.
And it looks good for both the babies and the parents. Everyone involved with this nest move feels good about the end result.
Today we came out here and took a hazardous situation and we made it better.
It's another success for both APS and Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation in a string of about a half-dozen nest moves that have all worked out well. There are high hopes this process will be used by others in the future.
I hope it catches on. I hope that somehow or another throughout the United States that, you know, where they have these problems and everything, that we start getting interactive and create a good viable program for how to relocate nests and how to wire them down, you know, strap them down to a nice platform, what kind of insulation is going to work, you know, so they don't hurt themselves after we're gone.
And wildlife rehabilitators are noticing a difference, including Sandy Kate at the Arizona Game and Fish Department's Wildlife Center at Adobe Mountain.
Most definitely. I would say over the past 7 years, we've seen a huge decrease.
Sandy says this is a good, positive effort by utility companies and by the public.
We can have electricity for lighting and cooking and heat and cooling and all those types of things, but we owe it to these animals to make sure that with that equipment we put out there, that we try to do the best so that they don't suffer because of things that we put out there for human convenience.
For more information on anything you've seen on our show, go to our website, azgfd.gov.